Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and this video is going to be full of nonsense for all of us to enjoy. From the hit game Mouthwashing getting submerged in a culture war of its own making, Asmongold getting attacked for it, and even the creator of Earthworm Jim proving that being based is actually great for business. Let's get into it. Firstly, if you don't know, Mouthwashing is a game by Wrong Organ. It's a first-person horror game that has created its own niche community that has since been exposed to bigger groups, thanks to various YouTubers doing Let's Plays of the game over the past month and then some. Without spoiling the game, Mouthwashing is about a small crew of people on a spaceship that ends up running into some internal trouble. Honestly, to go beyond this would be pretty much spoiling the story for you, and it's best kept this way. But the game is very narratively focused. I haven't played it myself, however, I have watched some lore vids on it, and I watched entire playthroughs myself. It looks cool, I have to admit. Anyway, so why are we talking about this? Well, it turns out the Mouthwashing devs are very much against Gamergate 2, and specifically point out a friend of the channel in Grums as being someone that they loathe. And they are now going after even Asmongold as well, which won't end well for them of course either. So how did this all happen? Originally, an artist named USA, no not that USA, decided to draw one of the characters from the game in a lewd art style. The character in question is named Anya, who, I don't know about you, but she looks like Shelley Duvall from The Shining to me. Maybe that's just me, but going on. This Anya was then drawn by this artist USA, and then they decided to draw Anya as a lewd, elven-like eared, busty woman with thigh-high socks and really big gonzangas. Obviously, I can't show the full art on here, so it's blocked as you can see on screen fully, but here it is, and use your imagination for now. Of course, this image garnered a huge response, over 21 million views on X alone, and of course, people got really mad, claiming that the art is awful because it sexualizes a character that should not be viewed in this manner. A slight spoiler for Mouthwashing, however, I'll keep it very vague for obvious reasons. But this character Anya in the game is a victim of assault, specifically that of the sexual kind. So fans of the game cried out claiming that making Anya look lewd and such is a bad thing because the character is a victim of assault. And the artist doing this to the character is no better than the history behind the character itself. Of course, this caused backlash as you would expect. Eventually, the artist USA would reply after thousands of comments of attacks. I apologize for making everyone feel uncomfortable. I was listening to a live video of this game while I was drawing. And the moment I saw Anya, I thought she was cute, so I drew her. I haven't watched everything thoroughly, so I don't know much about this character. Sorry, everyone. So obviously it was a big misunderstanding. The artist is known for lewd drawing, saw Anya, and their gooner brain caused them to do what it does best, which is to goon, of course. In my opinion, art is art. If someone wants to draw something in a certain style or position, there's not much you can do about it. It is what it is. The whole Rule 34 thing exists for a reason. Like, I love the character Mordin from Mass Effect, and I'm not even going to look it up, but I would wager that there's probably Rule 34 about him somewhere. And no, I'm not going to look it up. Okay, fine, I'll go look it up. And yeah, there's Rule 34 of Mordin Solus, alright. I did not need to know what a Solarian looks like naked while Krogans do stuff to them, but I regret to inform you that yes, there is art out there, and it is real. I guess this just proves what I was saying, which is there's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. Anyway, eventually this whole saga of Anya being drawn like a busty elf girl would eventually catch the attention of Asmongold, who would then talk about it as well. This is where everything takes a turn for the worse. Then people who worked on Mouthwashing over at Wrong Organ decided that it was a good idea to put their feet down and speak out against all of this. Firstly, Wrong Organ themselves would respond to the backlash against the artist who made that picture, stating, "Some Mouthwashing fan creators have been receiving harassment over works that others have found distasteful. If you see fan works that you do not like, block and ignore it. Any form of harassment is unacceptable. If you can't be respectful and considerate, this fandom is not the place for you." I think had Wrong Organ stopped here, everything would have been fine. They're right, it's harassment to dogpile some creator for a picture they drew, regardless of whichever side they're on. The developer taking a neutral response to cut both sides down and just say stop being morons and ignore art you don't like is a base take. And I do think that more companies and devs, whatever, should operate and think this way, to be real with you. Of course, for example, here's one of the people harassing the artist telling them to end themselves. Yeah, it's not cool, but you get the point. However, unfortunately, this doesn't end here. The audio lead for Wrong Organ, whose name is Martin, don't harass this person, by the way, even though they are not giving us the same level of respect, but we can stoop down to their level. Anyway, Martin would reply to Asmongold, reacting to USA's Anya picture by saying, "The anti-woke crowd has found the game and I feel sick to my effing stomach. Being on Twitter is going to be unbelievably painful from now on. That I don't know if I can be active on here. I don't have the energy for this." You ask me, this is a massive overreaction, but unfortunately, a lot of people who are in games or media think and act like this. They can't seem to control their emotions, they speak in hyperboles, and fail to rationalize or see logic in anything. Instead, freaking out and crying the moment that something happens to them. It's annoying to say the least. You're adults, for God's sake. Stop acting like spoiled 5-year-olds who didn't get the toy that they wanted. Asmongold would respond to the backlash from this dev and the community at large that he was made aware of Mouthwashing, to which he then said, "Finished Mouthwashing, the game obviously, really great experience that shows the potential in storytelling when you don't pull punches and respect the complexity of evil. Would definitely recommend, looking forward to seeing what the studio comes up with next." I think we can all agree that what Asmongold said here was solid. It was classy, he bought the game and supported the devs and then showcased the game to more people. It's an absolute win for Wrong Organ as a studio, but of course this audio lead dev decided, nah man, this is bad because something Gamergate 2. So here's where things get unhinged. Then one user tagged Grums, who's my friend, who always seems to get into trouble with people, even when he has nothing to do with these things. And the user would say, "Don't know if you know about this mouthwashing indie game, but I think it would be cool to commend the devs of the game for standing up against the woke crowd harassing artists on here." Like, this is good PR for you, Wrong Organ. People are supporting you. They want Grums and others to say, hey, this is a good way of combating toxic fan behavior. Hell, I even agreed with the sentiment earlier in this video. Don't ruin it. Just go with the flow and you'll be okay. Then the audio lead would reply, "Grums has no effing seat at the table, a failed dev and a failed grifter, forever a loser. Ah, Martin, you could have had it all. But you went and did that. Why are modern game devs like this, man? Seriously, you were in the clear. Now you're in the dirt, sloshing around crying for no reason." Of course, this Martin would go protected immediately, like they always do, because they can't handle anything. They love dishing it out and screaming, but can never face the music of their own actions. Grums would reply to this Martin with, "One of the devs of Mouthwashing is really upset that Asmongold found the game. I feel sick to my effing stomach. I've never mentioned it till today and I'm apparently already preemptively not welcome. This is a terrible move by this dev. But unfortunately, these developers actively hate their paying customers, and it's always pathetic to see." Grums would continue with, "Game is not woke. We have the opportunity to do the funniest thing and take over the game community with chuds." And that's the thing. The game isn't pandering or anything like that, at least at first glance. It's full of complex personalities and story threads, sure. But it's not a game where they're throwing ideology in your face constantly or anything like that. It's how games should, for all intents and purposes, just be a solid product that's worth the money that's spent on it. Which is why it's so stupid and annoying that this Martin of Wrong Organ, who is part of the LGBTQ+ community, has decided to turn it into the situation that it never needed to be. Martin would double down against Gamergate 2 and its supporters with, "Let's be real though, Grums wouldn't like the game baseline and I'm happy with that. F him and everyone who follows him." Martin, why are you doing this to your colleagues and the game that you all worked on? What are you going to gain from this? Nobody was attacking your game. This started because an artist who is a gooner decided to draw some lewd drawing. And this then led to Asmongold, which is a big channel, finding your game, buying it, by the way, and then showing people your work. He likely grew your fan base. And then Grums, who had nothing to do with anything going on here, just gets roped into this and then you start losing your mind. You ask me, you have derangement syndrome, dude. It's the only explanation here. You're losing your mind because people who like good games want to play and support a good game. And you're not okay with it because the wrong people, in your opinion, are getting into your game. Like, what is going on? This is like Joker versus Joker 2 all over again. First thing does very well and is successful, but the wrong people liked and supported it, so now we have to ruin it and burn it all down because we hate those people and don't see them as human beings, I guess. Why be like this, Martin? Honestly, what do you gain from this besides negative press and mass exoduses of support? Like I said, the game isn't even very woke. Why? This game could very easily be turned into a very gripping limited series if they wanted to as well. Like, the brand recognition here is off the charts. Why would you do this to your colleagues? You're a moron. Of course, Martin would run away to Blue Sky, like all leftists do, where one user would then say over there, "I'm so sorry you've been dealing with all of this. Taking time for yourself and away from socials is a great idea, and we'll all be here to support you when you get back," to which Martin would then reply, "Thank you, that means a lot. I really want to be active and engaged, but my mental health is taking a big toll, so it's best for me to step back for a while." I think I speak for everybody when I say, what are you talking about, Martin? There was no backlash. There was no hate. Nothing. People were supporting you. They weren't attacking you. Nobody cares that you're gay. Hell, the audio design of Mouthwashing is great, which you worked on as the audio lead. You're just taking something that could have been an easy win, and you're turning it into a problem of your own making. For what reason? Because conservatives like your game? For God's sakes, you're part of the LGBTQ+ community. Aren't y'all supposed to be welcoming of people from all walks of life? Surely there's conservative LGBTQ+ people out there too. Are they not welcome in your community because they don't have the same politics as you? Are you being serious here? I could have made a video stating, look at this Mouthwashing game. Isn't it great that the devs just cut the BS down immediately and told everyone to behave themselves? And then they just made a great no-filler game with zero politics or nonsense in it. Isn't that great? Shouldn't we celebrate that? But no, instead I'm here double-cheeked up in slippers talking about how Martin over here is an idiot who decided it's better to ruin the entire game's reputation in future because people they don't like bought their game. And then you pull Grums into this. The dude has nothing to do with your game. You are so deranged, all of you. Dude, it's so pathetic. And then to cry for sympathy and claim that you're a victim when it's clear that you're just a woke dummy who can't separate your own ideologies from the real consequences of your work is astounding to me. These are real people, dear viewers, people who pay taxes and live amongst us. Completely delusional, who make problems for themselves because they have been brought up with victimhood mindsets. And then when faced with the overwhelming praise of their work, they decide somehow that it's bad, and it must force a situation into a victimhood mindset because it's how their brains work. Man, I just don't get it. It's like people giving you a surprise birthday party and they give you all the presents that you could want, and then you instead pour gasoline over all of it. And then you light it on fire, then you piss your pants, and then you crap yourself. These people are insane, dude. And I don't mean LGBTQ+ people, by the way. I mean these modern game devs like Martin here. It's just so sad to see. I'm not even mad at the guy. I'm just very disappointed. Of course, Savvy, a friend of the channel with her autismo powers, was able to go about and find stuff about Martin, starting with his LinkedIn. Savvy would discover that this Martin guy who works at Wrong Organ actually doesn't just list himself as audio lead. As you can see here, Martin even lists himself as a co-founder of Wrong Organ, which is really bizarre. Imagine you open something up and then your friend just randomly claims that they're a co-founder of something that they didn't do. That would annoy you, wouldn't it? It gets weirder too. Another person who worked on Mouthwashing is someone named Alexander Milton. Again, don't harass anyone. But this Alexander is a weird case too. He lists himself as an advisor who worked at Wrong Organ, which is a weird job title for a game like this. How could you realistically advise on a small indie horror first-person game? What's his expertise in all of this? Further looking into this, Alexander has experience as a teacher at various places and is also a board member for Pride festivals in Sweden. Ah, okay, now things are starting to click together here. So this Alexander guy is a consultant then. Advisor is just another term for it. Savvy then found Alexander's personal website, which shows him standing here claiming that he's a game industry expert with experience in most fields. What does that even mean exactly? The guy can do everything? Well, not exactly, as you'll see. If you then go look at his actual credentials, this Alexander Milton is nothing more than a grifting consultant who ping-pongs from studio to studio year after year. Claiming that he's a temporary teacher, then he's suddenly a project manager, but he's also a business coach. But that he also founded his own studio called Miltonic Games, which is not really a studio, but just a business under his name to house his advisory and consulting aims. And again, he's an advisor for Wrong Organ and head of scouting and developer relations too at something called Kinda Brave. But this is the slam dunk, which is here where it says this in his qualifications. LGBTQI Certification 6-part education on discrimination, inclusion, and social issues facing LGBTQ people. Ah, there it is. The guy's a professional grifter. That's what he really is. It's also funny that his qualifications state that he has an incomplete degree in game development that he never finished, but then instead swapped to business development and consulting instead. So this guy claims, as he stated on his own website, that he has experience in all fields of game development. But please ignore that he also didn't finish his game development courses and instead chose a job that requires basically zero experience, which is just claiming to be an advisor and then work at companies that he then jumps between every other year to consult, which is, let's be real, just an industry grifter at this point. Basically, this Alexander guy, he is consulting the same way that Sweet Baby Inc. does, but on a much smaller scale, as it's just him as far as we know so far. The point here is that the guy took a bogus course on LGBTQ plus people, I guess, and then turned it into a bona fide business grift that he could use to charge companies to pay him for his so-called expertise. Savvy then found out that this Alexander guy was also a games journalist first, which of course they are. A lot of industry grifters, by the way, they all start out as journalists. Then he became a board member at Donna for the organization that is for inclusion of women in the games industry. What? Then he worked at Diversey to increase diversity in game education and is the founder of Equal Play, a so-called network that pushes diversity and inclusion in the games industry. I'm starting to take it all back. Maybe mouthwashing is definitely infected. Actually, it probably is. It's just way more subtle, I guess. I really thought that we had a game here that we could all be celebrating, but alas, it seems that they are instead pretty infected too. All in all, when it comes to wrong organ and mouthwashing, they're a studio that expertly swindles their DEI initiatives behind smokescreens to favor a culture that pushes LGBTQ+ and women into the workforce, and this so-called co-founder of Wrong Organ is just a disillusioned audio lead that just hates conservatives, Gamergate 2, Grums, and anyone who pushes back against these things. This game could have been a rare win in the culture war for leftists. For all intents and purposes, it was made by people who lean left heavily, but was also objectively a well-made product. But unfortunately now, the game has this greasy smear across all of it, knowing that the people behind it to some extent just hates anyone with differing opinions and would rather anyone who is not a liberal to die or never play their games. So, message received, Wrong Organ. I guess I won't play mouthwashing or support it. It's unfortunate too. Because I'll admit, your game looked interesting, but sadly, like always, it's the people behind these games that tend to ruin things for everyone else involved. Maybe next time hire an advisor to tell your employees and this so-called co-founder to keep their opinions to themselves in the future. Because now, whatever Wrong Organ makes next, this anti-Gamergate 2 story will just hang over that studio in the future no matter what they make. As I said before, I'm not even sad really, I'm just very disappointed in all of this. Dear game devs, stop doing this. You don't need to ruin things for stupid agenda purposes, and stop hiring advisors who are journalists that can't finish degrees, that also claim that they know how to do everything in a studio. You're getting grifted, just how so many did by Sweet Baby Inc. I do want to finish this video with this story from the creator of Earthworm Jim from Fandom Pulse. Earthworm Jim creator Doug TenNapel blasts woke video games. The best gamers I knew were conservative. Doug TenNapel, as you can see him on screen now, is an outspoken conservative man who's worked in video games for decades. If you remember, Elon Musk spoke on making his own game studio and how games are too tied to ideology these days, which he's right, by the way. This then led to Doug responding where he said, "I created Earthworm Jim and got Game of the Year in 1994. We made the Neverhood Skull Monkeys and worked on scores of other simple, fun, wonderful games before teams got bloated and inefficient. Being a conservative Christian caused a secular progressive culture to end merit-based content creation. Most of the best gamers I knew were conservative, had a killer work ethic. We were frugal with our budgets and only wanted to make games everyone would love. But my old pals are scattered or pinned under Electronic Arts. Even worse than the woke mind virus is the inefficiency of game creation where the money doesn't make it on screen. Small, lean teams could turn the entire industry around." So what Doug is implying here is that conservative-minded individuals do not look at making content the same way liberals do. Let me explain. When a liberal makes content, especially these days, for the most part, they want to make it for people who just think like them. This is why the things that they make these days are overtly female-focused, anti-white men, pro-diversity, all the things you know and expect these days from modern Western game developers. They're not really interested these days in making games for the evil, devil, conservative gamers out there. Instead, they just want to cater to their echo chambers. But since we all know that due to budgets and the marketing capitalism, that catering to a small group doesn't really warrant success. Look at all the failures that happened this year as proof. What Doug here is saying, who again made Earthworm Jim, is that conservatives don't look to make content only for conservatives. Instead, they just want to make cool things that don't have agendas baked into them. And because of this mantra, it ends up catering to a far greater demographic of people. Take, for example, pretty much a lot of Japanese games, not necessarily conservative or liberal, of course. But the intent is that most Japanese games that do well are made from a place of neutral political ideology. In fact, many JRPGs especially tackle issues like how organized ideologies or religions can control people. Take any game where you fight a god at the end for a good example of this in action. The point here is that making something devoid of politics when it comes to the real world anyway is a net positive for everyone. You just make something that people want to play, not because it leans any certain way, mind you, but simply because it's well made, it's fun, and it doesn't talk down to the customer. But this is opposite of what the Mouthwashing dev and advisors have been doing with their stances. They couldn't even bathe in their own successes without reverting to a victimized mindset, as I showed you already. What Doug has said here rings true, especially when juxtaposed against what Wrong Organ's devs and opinions here are doing. This Martin is trying to exclude conservative gamers simply because they're not liberals. It has nothing to do with the game or the story, but the simple fact that they think differently that warrants this response. I agree with what Doug Tenapel has said here. Make products for everyone instead of just a small minority. Space Marine 2 is a great example of what I think the industry needs to chase more of. The game has politics and religion in it. I mean, it's about Space Marines after all, but the political structures and religious angles of Space Marine are not taken from the real world, so to speak. Instead, these concepts are derived from those ideas from within Warhammer itself as an IP. This is fine. For example, in the beginning of the game, slight spoilers, but don't worry. Titus, the main character of Space Marine 2, has to hide the fact that he was a part of this other faction from the other Marines that he's working with. Because those Marines, if they found out that he was a part of this group, would cause them to see him in a different and much more negative light. This is political and religious, yes, on both accounts, but it's only those things based on what it means to the world that these characters live in, not ours. The problem with games today is that these people don't know how to separate fiction from reality, and it's costing them a lot of money finding out people don't care about Black Lives Matter or whatever else is in their Spider-Man 2 game or anything else. The problem is that these developers like Martin of Wrong Organ proved here today is they are truly incapable of separating the customer from the ideology or religion. But they will of course yell at you if you try to attack them for being liberals and will likely say, "Can't you remove the creator from the art, even though we can't do the same for you?" The problem is ever persisting, and it sucks to see it happen so many times. Ultimately, the panacea for this kind of mental stupidity is for these people to be criticized and beaten over the head with common sense until they're able to come back to reality with the rest of us. It will be very hard to change a mindset that has been absolutely ravaging the game industry by the way it has been for the last 10 years and then some, but I'm confident if we keep making waves the way we did this year and continue to force the industry into compliance, whether it's through not buying their products or discussing them openly and candidly online, that we can return to some normalish status quo again. Stop attacking your audiences, see people for who they are, and not for what you perceive them to be based on what others tell you to think. As much as some may try to paint me as a grifter for trying to control you, ultimately I hope my videos tell you to think for yourselves more than anything else. Be your own person, question everything despite the side it's coming from, and try to see the messages underneath. Only then can we heal and bring the world back from the brink of chaos. Thanks for watching, subscribe, thanks to my supporters, and I'll see you soon.